Link's Awakening is not known for its dungeons. People sometimes overlook its chamber dungeons simply because they are more simplistic and have a top-down view. There are still some really good dungeons in this game that are just as good, if not better, than the dungeons in some 3D Zelda games. And today, I will make a list of my top 5 favorite dungeons from Link's Awakening. Number 5. Angler's Tunnel. Angler's Tunnel is the first dungeon that does not just have a boring cave or cavern design. Its water theme is implemented very nicely and the dungeon has a nice relaxing look. It is also, in my opinion, the first dungeon that actually is challenging, with cool puzzles and a lot of monsters. One of the monsters you encounter is this guy, the mini-boss. It's a simple fight, but I like how there are many different ways to deal damage to him. And you have to be very careful because he switches directions a lot. After the mini-boss, the dungeon starts to get even better, because then you finally get the flippers, so you can now swim to reach new chambers and you can finally get the key that fell into the water. The boss fight itself, Anglerfish, is a hidden gem in the Zelda series despite how much people dislike it, and is in my opinion the best boss in Link's Awakening. Instead of a normal chamber for the boss fight, Anglerfish is in a two-dimensional room with a very different design than the rest of the dungeon chambers. The fight itself is quite fun. Sure, its weak point is obvious, and it's not difficult, but you can't spam kill it because you bounce away with every attack, and then you need to wait for an opening in one of Anglerfish's many varied attacks to deal more damage and eventually defeat it. There are, however, many problems with this dungeon. To start with, there is quite a bit of backtracking, and most chambers need to be visited twice, once before you get the flippers, and once after you get the flippers. Overall, it's a very nice dungeon that I always look forward to every time I replay Link's Awakening. Number 4. Color Dungeon. Color Dungeon is the only bonus dungeon in Link's Awakening. It's a very different dungeon than the rest, with the not at all surprising theme of color. There are colorful enemies, colorful floors, and colorful puzzles. Despite all this color, it's one of the shortest dungeons with a simple yet fun design. It has 2 unique mini-bosses which are all fun, even if they are a little simple, and as I mentioned earlier, the color dungeon is filled with all sorts of color-related puzzles. It has this puzzle where you need to make every tile square, which is enjoyable and fun to think about, and it has these colorful floors that break after you step on them so many times. One problem with the dungeon is that some chambers are way too easy, like the chamber before the boss. Speaking of the boss, it feels too short. You just have to hit his shell 8 times and you're done. If you're too slow, he can heal, but it doesn't take too long to do even more damage. Halfway through the fight, the boss makes green stalfos fall from the sky, but if you use bombs, then you can just explode them all, and then finish the battle and then defeat him. It also feels like the boss is missing a second stage of some sort after you break his shell, where you need to do more damage just to him without a shell. This is also the only dungeon without an instrument at the end. The reward for completing it is either the red mail, which doubles the damage of your attacks, or the blue mail, which halves the damage that you take. Overall, it's a fun dungeon with neat puzzles, but I wouldn't mind if it was a bit longer. Number 3. Catfish's Maw. Catfish's Maw is the dungeon where things start to get much more difficult. It has a sand and water theme, similar to Angler's Tunnel. Here, instead of being a calm, relaxing dungeon, Catfish's Maw is a dungeon filled with traps, puzzles, and monsters. There are 5 mini-bosses, which sounds like a lot, but it's only because you need to fight Master Stalfos 4 times to get the special item, the hookshot, which is in my opinion one of the best items in all of the Zelda series. It is annoying when you find one of the Stalfos battle chambers, but you haven't beaten the previous one yet, because then you need to backtrack all the way back and find the previous Stalfos chamber, beat that, and then go all the way back to the one that you found earlier. After you win all the Master Stalfos fights and get the hookshot, you can then go to another mini-boss fight, Goma, where you need to use the hookshots to shoot his weak point, which is his eye, and then use your sword to defeat him. After this, you can get the Nightmare Key and fight the dungeon boss, Slimeal. This is by far the hardest boss in Link's Awakening, because not only do you have to avoid his spinning tail, but you also have to shoot the hookshot in his mouth and then attack his core. Sometimes a fake Slimeal will appear, and if you hookshot that, then it will pop out of the wall, move around randomly, and then explode. However, you can tell which one is real and fake because they have different eyes. Overall, it's a very good dungeon that is a bit similar to Angler's Tunnel, but it improves on it in every way to earn its place as the 3rd best dungeon in Link's Awakening. Number 2. Eagle's Tower. Eagle's Tower for the spot of 2nd best dungeon in Link's Awakening? Really? Yes, Eagle's Tower is a very good and memorable dungeon. Sure, people don't like it because of how hard it is, but I don't think it's actually that hard. Sure, it can be very overwhelming the first time you encounter it, but once you think about it, it's actually quite short and it's not really that hard. Let me explain. You can reach the second floor early on, destroy the first 2 pillars, and get most of the keys. The last 2 pillars are hard to reach, but if you just fall down to the first floor, then climb up at a different point, all the pillars can easily be reached and destroyed. Although you can go to the 3rd floor before you destroy all the pillars, you don't need to and you shouldn't. Just wait until after destroying all of them, and then it's easy to get the nightmare key and then reach the boss. Eagle's Tower also has a very interesting theme and design. It reuses a lot of things from Face Shrine, like the chess piece puzzles and this floor attack thing, but I feel like they are not used quite as well as they are in Face Shrine. The mini-boss is hard until you realize that if you hide in the corner and spam your sword, you'll easily defeat all the enemies. And the dungeon boss itself, Evil Eagle, is not that hard. Whenever he gets close to you, you can just spam your sword. Using your bow will also make the fight way easier. Another thing I like about Eagle's Tower is thinking about where all the floors line up and what holes you need to fall down in order to complete the dungeon, and solving all the red and blue switch blocks puzzles can be very rewarding. My only problem with the dungeon is if you accidentally drop the ball that breaks the pillars, then you need to go all the way back and redo everything you just did, which can make destroying the last pillar a bit harder. Number 1. Face Shrine. You knew it would be somewhere on this list. Face Shrine is the best dungeon in Link's Awakening, and is just as good, if not better, than most 3D Zelda dungeons. Its design is simplistic yet epic. It fits the feeling of sadness that Link feels as he knows that he needs to wake the Windfish, but that it will make the island disappear. All the slightly elevated halls around the chamber makes the dungeon feel like the dungeon has a second floor, and the music in the dungeon is so perfect and beautiful, it adds so much to the atmosphere. The dungeon is filled with neat puzzles involving red and blue switch crystals, chess pieces, a floor that can attack you, and more. The mini-boss is very simple, but is my favorite mini-boss in the entire game. When he throws the ball at you, all you need to do is pick it up and throw it back at him. Do this 4 times and you're done. Easy, right? I know it's a very simple idea, but I really like it. I don't really know why. Although sometimes you can get lost when exploring the Face Shrine and need to use the ocarina to go back to the start, it doesn't take too long to find your way back to where you were before you got lost. Also, these enemies here are annoying and waste a lot of arrows, but there are lots of arrows hidden in the dungeon so you won't run out. My biggest problem with Face Shrine is its boss. At the start of the fight, he will make the floor tiles attack you, but if you hide in the corner and hold out your shield, you will be fine. After that, he will make holes in the floor that chase you, but if you don't stand still, you'll be fine from that too. To damage the boss, all you have to do is place a bomb on his face, and after doing that a few times, he gets defeated. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad boss, but it should be better for the best dungeon in the game. Although Face Shrine has some flaws, I still think it deserves the award of Best Link's Awakening Dungeon because of how fun the puzzles and mini-bosses are. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do you agree with my list? Please remember that this list is only my opinion. Leave a comment with your 5 favorite Link's Awakening dungeons, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed the video.